Cassie had just moved into a quiet suburban neighborhood with her 7-year-old son, Eli. It was the kind of place where people waved from their driveways, lawns were always trimmed, and the mailboxes never leaned. It seemed perfect. Her house sat at the end of the street, right next to a small, older home with faded blue shutters. That house belonged to Daniel. Cassie met most of her neighbors within the first week. They brought over welcome cookies, introduced their dogs, and chatted about trash days and school bus stops. But Daniel never came by. He lived alone. No family visited, and no music ever played from his windows. He kept his blinds closed and his yard neat, but plain. She sometimes saw him watering the grass just before sunset, wearing an old army jacket and staring into the distance like he was watching something far away. Cassie tried to say hello once. Daniel barely looked up, nodded quickly, and walked back inside without a word. She shrugged it off, telling herself some people just liked their space. But at night, she started hearing things. Muffled yelling from his house. Sometimes a loud bang, like a fist hitting a wall. She'd see lights flicker on and off around 2 a.m. Once, she saw him standing outside in the cold barefoot and breathing heavily. It made her uneasy. Must be some kind of PTSD, a neighbor whispered during a casual chat. He's a vet, retired years ago. Cassie nodded but rolled her eyes. PTSD or not, he's still creepy. Always acting like he's in a movie or something. She didn't hate him, she just didn't understand him. And sometimes people fear what they don't understand. The nights got harder for Cassie. Daniel's yelling grew louder. Sometimes she heard him shout words she couldn't understand. Angry, painful words. She told a few neighbors about it during a block party. He's unstable, Cassie said quietly, not wanting to seem rude but wanting others to know. I'm worried for my son. What if he snaps? Some neighbors nodded but others shook their heads. He's been through things we can't imagine, one woman said. You don't know what PTSD really feels like. Cassie frowned. PTSD is just an excuse some people use. Drama, honestly, I don't buy it. That opinion spread quickly through the neighborhood chat group. Messages popped up late at night. Is Daniel safe, and we should watch out. Cassie felt like she was protecting her family. One morning, Eli was playing outside when Daniel's dog, a scruffy mutt named Max, slipped out through an open gate and ran down the street. Cassie rushed after Max, calling his name. When Daniel appeared at the gate, his face was pale and tense. Please, don't touch him, he said sharply. He's scared. Cassie tried to calm him. I'm just trying to help. Your dog's running loose. Daniel's hands trembled, and he suddenly shouted, "Get away." His voice was louder than she expected, filled with panic. Cassie jumped back, shocked. She didn't know what to say. The panic in his voice made her heart race. Later she told a neighbor, "He's unstable, I'm telling you. This isn't just about war stories or drama, it's something else." The neighborhood was divided. Some wanted to support Daniel, others whispered behind his back. Cassie didn't realize the storm was only beginning. One afternoon, the neighborhood was busy with kids playing outside and neighbors chatting on their porches. Eli and his friends decided to play hide and seek in the small woods behind the houses. Cassie watched from the kitchen window, folding laundry, feeling a little uneasy but trying to stay calm. Suddenly Eli didn't come back. Minutes passed, then 10. Cassie's heart started pounding. She called his name, louder and louder. "Eli," she shouted, stepping outside. The sky was beginning to darken, thick clouds rolling in. She ran toward the woods, panic rising with every step. Eli was nowhere to be seen. Other parents joined the search, calling for their kids. The police were called, sirens flashed down the street. Cassie's stomach twisted in knots. How could she lose him so fast? Just when hope was starting to fade, Daniel appeared. He had a flashlight in his hand and moved confidently through the trees. "I know these woods," he said quietly, almost without looking at anyone. "I can help find your son." Cassie hesitated. After everything, the yelling, the strange behavior, could she trust him? But she had no choice. Together they went deeper into the woods. Daniel led, eyes sharp, flashlight cutting through the growing darkness. After what felt like forever, they heard a faint noise, a whimper. Daniel rushed toward an old storm drain, hidden under leaves and branches. "There," he said. Eli was inside, curled up and scared, trapped by the narrow opening. Daniel reached down carefully and pulled Eli out. Eli's face was streaked with tears. Daniel sat down beside him and whispered softly, "Hey kid, you were brave out there, just like when I had to be brave too." Cassie watched, tears in her eyes. She saw a side of Daniel she had never seen before, gentle, kind, protective. That night, as Eli slept soundly, Cassie sat alone, thinking about the man who had saved her son. For the first time, she wondered what battles Daniel had really been fighting. After Daniel helped rescue Eli, he seemed tired, more than just physically. His hands shook as he sat on the porch steps, breathing hard. Suddenly, his chest tightened, and he gripped his shirt. Panic filled his eyes. A retired nurse from down the street, Mrs. Harper, saw what was happening and rushed over. "It's a panic attack," she said softly, kneeling beside Daniel. "It happens when memories overwhelm him." Cassie stood quietly nearby, feeling helpless. Mrs. Harper explained that Daniel suffered from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, from his time in the military. He had lost his entire unit in a sudden explosion years ago. He blamed himself. The yelling Cassie heard at night was not anger, it was pain. The moments when he seemed weird or scary were flashes of his trauma. Cassie's heart ached. She remembered how she had dismissed Daniel's pain as drama, how she had whispered behind his back, how she had judged him. Now she understood how heavy his burden was. She thought about the night she saw him outside, barefoot and shaking. She thought about the way he panicked over his dog, how that panic was not weakness, it was real. Tears came to her eyes. She wished she could take back every harsh word, every doubtful look. She wished she had listened instead of judged. But Daniel had already started to close off. Cassie realized, this wasn't just a story about a weird neighbor, it was a story about invisible wounds. Wounds that don't show on the outside, but cut just as deep. That night, Cassie sat on her porch, staring at Daniel's dark house next door. She wondered if she would ever get the chance to say sorry. The next morning, Cassie woke early, feeling a weight she couldn't shake. She baked cookies, the kind Eli loved, and wrote a note. "Daniel, I was wrong, I judged you without knowing your pain. I'm sorry, thank you for saving my son." She clutched the note tightly, as she walked across the street, her heart pounding. But when she reached Daniel's house, something felt different. The porch light was off, the curtains were drawn tight, the mailbox overflowed with unopened letters. A for sale sign stood in the yard. Cassie's stomach dropped. She knocked softly on the door. No answer. A neighbor passing by stopped and said, "Daniel left early this morning, said he needed to be somewhere else. He couldn't stay after all the whispers and looks." Cassie felt tears sting her eyes. She realized Daniel had been living with pain so deep, surrounded by fear and judgment, that he chose to leave rather than face it all. She placed the cookies on his porch, next to the note, hoping he might come back to find them. But days passed with no sign of him. Cassie sat alone one evening, holding the empty space Daniel's absence left behind. The regret weighed on her like a stone. She had waited too long. Sometimes the hardest thing is not admitting you were wrong, but acting before it's too late. After Daniel left, the neighborhood felt different. The quiet house at the end of the street was empty, but the memories stayed. Cassie began to think more about what she had learned, about Daniel, about PTSD, and about people carrying invisible battles. She started volunteering at a nearby veterans center, listening to stories she never knew before. She met others like Daniel, who struggled silently but bravely every day. Cassie also spoke with her neighbors, encouraging them to be kind and patient. "Sometimes people don't show their pain the way we expect," she said. "Sometimes we speak too soon, and listen too late." Eli still played in the yard, laughing and safe, but Cassie never forgot the man who saved him, the man she judged too quickly. She stood by the storm drain, where Daniel found Eli, feeling a quiet thankfulness. She wished Daniel peace, wherever he was, and she hoped others would learn from her story. Because sometimes understanding takes time, and sometimes it takes courage.